Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be doing a video on a little bit more lifestyle type content. I'm going to be doing an update on just motherhood. If you're new here to my channel, or if you missed my previous videos, I did have a baby. She's 9 months old now. So last summer I had a baby. While I was pregnant, I did take you along on my journey. I shared a lot of, what I was going through, what I was experiencing, my kind of, I wouldn't say advice because I'm in no way an expert or a professional, but just from experience, stuff that might help you if you're going through the same thing, or if you are interested in knowing kind of what it's like. So yeah, I've done, I think, 1 or 2 updates since I had her, and I wanted to kind of update you guys again. I love doing these videos because I'm obviously a very proud mom, and I like to share that. I also think it's fun to have more relatable content just about life. The biggest kind of reason I decided to do this video is I did share with you guys, probably it was about almost 3 months ago now, that I did sleep training with my daughter. And I asked if you guys wanted to hear about my experience and if you wanted me to share kind of how it went. And I also did a poll whether you wanted it kind of just short and sweet over on Instagram, or if you wanted a more detailed, in-depth video here on YouTube. So I thought that I would, and you guys voted for, hearing about it here on YouTube. So that's why we're here. I am going to talk about more than just sleep training, kind of do a whole update, but I am going to begin with sleep training. So if you are here from Instagram, you are one of those people who voted, yes, I want to hear your experience of sleep training, then you don't have to watch the whole video if you're not interested. But of course, I encourage you guys to stick around after I'm done the sleep training category. I'm going to share some other interesting and fun updates. Let's get into it. Okay, so I did kind of zoom in a bit. By the way, I know my eyebrows are not waxed. They're not that bad, but I did plan to wax them and then realized that I forgot to plug my wax in, and I only have so much time now that my daughter's sleeping, so just ignore that. If you weren't aware, I am going to be doing my makeup at the same time, as we are a beauty channel over here. I'm going to focus on the motherhood stuff, so I will have all the products I'm using down in the description box below. For context, I am 25. I'll be 26 in August. Not that this is about me, but just in case you want some background context. I have a 5-year-old son who, his name is Hudson, and I just had my daughter last June. Her name is Bella. Technically a stay-at-home mom. I'm home, I was home with my son until he went to school. This year was his first year at school, although he's been home probably just as much as he's been at school because he's been sick so much. But anyways, and I am home with my daughter all day, but I am also an esthetician. So I have my own salon, home-based salon. And I work from home around my husband's schedule. So he works a day job. He's a drywaller, steel stud framer, works kind of in that industry. And he is home in the evenings, so it works perfectly because then I can see my clients and still work. I did take only 3 weeks off with my daughter because now that I'm self-employed, I don't really get a mat leave. Just thought I would share that. So when I consider myself, when I refer to myself as a stay-at-home mom, that is why, because I am a stay-at-home mom, but I am also a working mom. So I'm kind of a bit of both. I'm home with my kids, at least one of them, all day. And then I'm also working most evenings and some weekends. So you're aware and not confused when I talk about working and then also talking about being a stay-at-home mom, if that makes sense. So yes, sleep training. Shut up, Kaitlyn, and let's get into it. I did sleep training with my son and did the cried out method. Now, before I get any further in here, let's remember to be kind. I'm in no way, shape, or form telling anybody who watches this or anybody in the world that you should do this. Every parent is different. Every child is different. Everybody has the right to believe and feel what they want in terms of what is best for their children. So I'm not saying if you don't do sleep training, you're a bad person. I'm not saying if you do sleep training, you're a bad person, obviously, because I did it. I'm just going to encourage you to have the same attitude because I don't want to hear any negativity. I am sharing what I've experienced. And again, I will repeat, I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to make anybody feel like they should be doing this because, again, I truly believe that you need to be either ready or follow your gut and do what you feel is best for your child. You know your child the best, you know, and it's also about what you can handle mentally. And that's not saying like, oh, if you can't do it, you're not mentally like capable. No, I'm saying like what, you know, if you have anxiety, it might, you know, like your mental health is important. So you got to find what's best for you and your kids at the same time. Okay, just want to get that out there because I know sleep training is a bit of a, it's a bit of a topic that can cause disagreement, and I just don't want to hear any negativity in the comments against me or anybody else. So only positive thoughts here, people, please and thank you. With that being said, let's get into it. I need to speed this up because I'm already getting Gabby. So I did sleep training with my son and did the cried out method. He was a really easy baby. He was just such a easygoing baby. The one thing was he didn't sleep through the night until he was 1, and I did have to do the sleep training. So I decided at 1 for him, because I did stop breastfeeding at 1, I decided, you know, you're not breastfeeding anymore. There's no reason for you to get up. And I decided to do sleep training. It was so hard. It's always hard to hear your kids cry. With him, I did the cried out. I basically, if you don't know what cried out is you basically put them down awake. You can soothe them enough that they're in a sleepy state, but the point is that you're putting them down awake and not fully asleep because they are to learn how to self-soothe and how to put themselves to sleep. That's the whole entire point of sleep training in general. But the cried out method is basically you just leave them and they figure it out. And I know that sounds harsh, and believe me, it was hard to decide to do and hard to do. Mind you, it worked well for us. And so that is why I am an advocate for sleep training, because I've had good experiences with it. Again, not everybody's going to. So with my son, it took about 3 or 4 nights for him to just go to sleep without crying and sleep through the night. Because he wasn't breastfeeding, I just, you know, he would put himself to sleep. Of course, there was crying involved. I think the first night for him, it was like about 20 minutes of crying. Which is obviously horrible and not fun, but it was about 20 minutes of crying, and then he went to sleep. I think the first couple nights he did wake up once or twice in the night, but it was really actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be at the time. He didn't cry a whole lot. I remember it being hard, but I also remember seeing progress every night, which made it a lot easier. He was crying for less time. You know, the next night was maybe only 15 minutes max. The next night was like 8 or 10 minutes. The next night was maybe 5 or not much more than 5 minutes. And then I would say, you know, following nights after that, he would maybe cry for a minute, if that. And really quickly, like within the week, he was fully just going to sleep and sleeping through the night. Again, he was such an easy baby. He picked it up really quickly and like just slept through the night. That was our experience with my son. It was really easy. It was hard, but it worked really well and it worked quickly for us. I didn't even do a whole lot of research. I obviously researched how to do it, but I mean, it's pretty simple. You just, as harsh as it sounds, you just leave them to figure it out. Because he was 1, it was still really, really hard because he was my baby. And of course it tore me apart inside to hear him cry and not go and get him. But I knew it was going to help him get better sleep. I knew it was going to help me get better sleep. And I think also the biggest factor, what encouraged me to continue, was because I was not breastfeeding anymore. So there's no reason for me to be in there. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're breastfeeding, it's like, okay, but they're hungry. Well, now they hit 1 and they don't need breast milk anymore. And I just was like, okay, well, like now it's just time for him to sleep through the night. I was also only 20 at the time, mind you. So I was in a little bit more of a phase, and not that I don't I would have done any differently. Believe me, I'm not saying, but I think just my mentality about it was a little bit less, like I'm a lot more of an anxious person, a lot more of an overthinker now that as I've gotten older. Yeah, I just was like, okay, so this is just what we do, and this is just how we do it, and that's that. And it worked. It really worked. So really great experience with my son. With my daughter, she was a much different baby. So if you've missed my updates, she is a much more, she's come a long way, mind you, but especially when she was the first 6 months of her life, geez, I was not prepared. She was a very fussy baby. She was, basically, to sum it up in a sentence, she would not sleep unless she was touching me. So bedtime, we started in her bassinet. She had really bad acid reflux, and she puked a lot as a baby. And I think that was the main reason as to why I'm telling you, the first couple weeks were hell. She would wake up every 15 minutes. I remember the one night I think I got maybe an hour of sleep, broken up. Like I was up all night, and I was like, I cannot do this. So we kind of tried a few different things, tried to get her to sleep on her own. She got into a really good sleeping habit by like 3 months. It got a lot better. She basically there was a week where she slept through the night every night, and I was like, oh my goodness. I remember thinking, and I said to my husband, I was like, I did not believe people that said their baby slept through the night from an early age, but now I do. And then she was like, psych, and went back to again waking up very often. So I would, exhausted, would pull her into bed with me. We safely co-slept, to kind of point that out, but we were co-sleeping, and then it ended up becoming just permanently what we were doing. In some ways it was almost just easier for me to just pull her into bed with me, but then it became worse because she wouldn't let me put her down at all. Like I remember before I did sleep training, it was to the point where I could not put her down at all without her waking up and crying. So like I would breastfeed her after we put my son to bed. She would fall asleep in my arms. I would hold her. Like we would stay up for an hour or two watching TV, and I would be holding her the whole time. And then like there were times where I'd try, but every time she'd just wake up, and then I'd have to put her back to sleep. So I'm like, at this point, it's easier for me to just hold her. So then at least I'd get to sit here and just watch TV, even though it's uncomfortable and whatever. Well, then, like I remember I would sometimes lay her in the bed and then go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, go pee, whatever, prepare for bed. And even then she got worse and worse, and she would just wake up. And so then she'd be awake, and then I'd have to put her back to sleep. And mind you, this is when I'm wanting to go to sleep. So I'm wanting to like rock her back to sleep even less now because I'm tired. So I would just literally hold her on the toilet while I was peeing, and I would just not even brush my teeth at night because I was like, I just need to go to sleep. And then she's co-sleeping with me, so I was uncomfortable because number one, I'm a little bit worried, like subconsciously I'm always thinking like, don't roll, like I can't even move because number one, I don't want to roll on her, but number two, like if I would move a lot, she'd wake up, and then I'd have to feed her back to sleep. And so she had absolutely no ability to sleep on her own, no self-soothing skills at all. And we try putting her in her crib. We would try putting her, in different places to sleep, and even during the day, it was so horrible. I could not put her down for a nap. So I was getting nothing done. The only way I could get things done was putting her in a wrap. Well, you guys saw if you watched my videos, I was wearing her for these videos just so I could record because there was no possible way I would be able to do it. It was starting to wear on me mentally, physically. I was exhausted. I was super, super impatient. And honestly, I had been thinking about doing the sleep training for a while. I just wasn't ready. You know, they say it's safe at 4 months to do the cry it out method. And so I remember thinking about it at 4 months. I was in no way, shape, or form ready. No, there's no way I would have been able to do it. And if you're watching this and you're like in a similar situation and you're not ready, please don't take this as me trying to push you to do it. I'm just sharing my experience, because I remember people saying to me, oh, you can just let her cry, and like trying to encourage. And I know in a lot of ways what they were doing was positive and trying to encourage me. But when you're not ready, it feels just like pressure. I remember almost feeling like, well, I can't feel sorry for myself because I could do something to help me sleep, but I'm not doing it, so it's my own fault. And I remember like feeling that way, and so I don't ever want anybody to feel that. But I was just becoming more and more affected by it, by the lack of sleep. I was so uncomfortable all the time sleeping, like to the point where I'd have to sleep like with my arm above my head, so that, because I couldn't rest it on her, she would like curl into me. So she was like to the point where she like literally needed to be touching me. And even sometimes I would get my husband like sleep with her so that I could have more space, and she would not sleep the same. And so I remember becoming more and more frustrated and just feeling so like I needed a break physically. Like, you know the saying touched out? If you don't know the saying, it's basically when you're like overstimulated, you've been touched all day. Like, she would literally be on me in the wrap or in my arms. I couldn't put her down to do anything. So I'd literally be holding her all day long. Aside from when I would work in the evenings and my husband would do it. And, she got a little better, but honestly, she was not great for him. Like, at that time, she would cry a lot of the time. He did his very best. He was great with her. I think the biggest factor, what I'm trying to get at here, is one of the things that really pushed me into doing it and really encouraged me is I felt, and I'm not saying I was being a bad mom, but I felt like I was not able to be the mom that I needed to be and that I wanted to be. I was impatient. I was so frustrated all the time with her, but especially with my son. And I feel like my son was getting the bad end of the stick. What can you do? With a baby, you have to take care of them. With my son, I would just get easily irritated. I was impatient. And I mean, I was still being the best mom I could be, but I wasn't able to be the mom I wanted to be and that I had been in the past. And I really was sad about it. And I was like, I can't do this. Number one, I can't do this physically. Number two, I can't do this to my son. Like, it's not his fault that she was born and takes up so much time. And I think, when they have a sibling, they have to learn a little bit. Like, it's not all about them, but I just didn't feel like I was able to spend much time with him at all. And so that's when I really started feeling like, okay, something needs to change here. So long story short, I decided to do it when she turned 6 months. I kind of set that timeline, like I think at 6 months is a good age. And so I had kind of prepared myself. I was going to do it at 6 months, whatever, right? Now, mind you, leading up to the 6 months, during the day for naps, I was trying to get her in her crib. So I'm trying to get her in her crib, right? And no success. So during the day I would like rock her, I'd put her down, and there were times where I wouldn't even be able to put her down successfully. Or she would sleep for like anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour. So like, sure, the half-hour moments, I would take it as a blessing. I would be thankful for it, but really, what can you do in half an hour, and that was rare. Like, that was super rare. So most times I would maybe get 5 to 10 minutes, and then she'd wake up. And then either I would have to rock her back to sleep, or she would just then be up and be miserable because she wasn't getting proper naps. So it was like starting to also just affect her sleep cycle, and like I was worried about her. So there was just so many things that kind of pushed me to doing the sleep training. Ended up working out that it was also on my son's Christmas break from school. And so the reason that worked out is because I was worried, he would be up at night. She would keep him up if she was crying, and then he'd be tired to go to school. I was also just kind of worried, like he is literally obsessed with her. I was a little worried that like he would not be okay with hearing her crying all the time, you know? So I actually had, because it was Christmas break, I had my parents take him for 2 nights. And so that actually also almost not forced me, but like I would have easily backed out of it if it wasn't for that. Honestly, I think I wouldn't have gone through with it. But because we had arranged this, I'm like, well, like we literally arranged for him to go just for this, you know, so let's do it. Did the cry it out method. Oh, the reason I wanted to bring up that I was trying to get her to nap is because she was so little, I was having a harder time accepting the fact that I was going to have to let her cry it out. I don't know. I just felt like she was still so little, like 6 months versus a year. That's a lot different. I tried for a couple naps the method where you like go in, soothe them without picking them up, and then you leave again, and then you like extend the period of time in between each time. And I tried that, and she's got some attitude, and she's got a temper a little bit. It did not work for her. She was not having it. She would get more and more mad every time I'd go in. So we did it. Night 1, did it. My son was gone, whatever. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. She has more of a temper, and she's a little more high maintenance than my son was. So it was not fun, let me tell you. She cried for 45 minutes. I didn't expect it to be that long, and I was literally crying. Like, I could not handle it. But I went through with it. She finally put herself to sleep. Mind you, like for the 45 minutes, it's not like she never took a break, but like she did not go to sleep for 45 minutes. But then she woke up 10 minutes later. And that's when I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to like listen to her cry for the rest of the night. I can't do it. So I went in. I said to my husband, I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I just listened to her cry for 45 minutes, and then she's already up. Like, I was at least hoping she would sleep for a bit before she got up again. I went in. And then I felt even more guilty because I'm like, now she cried for 45 minutes for nothing. But I just felt in my gut I needed to go in. And I kind of am glad I did, because her sound machine had turned off. So I'm pretty sure that's why she woke up. Her sound machine has a timer on it, and I must have pressed the button by accident. And so she woke up because I think the sound machine turned off and there was no like white noise. And when you're used to, like, I sleep with a fan, so when you're used to it, it's hard to sleep without it, right? I ended up just pulling her into bed with me because I couldn't do it again that night. And I kind of, when I went in there, I had the idea that I was done. I was not going to continue. I was going to wait for a while until I tried sleep training again. But because I realized that the sleep machine or the sound machine was off, I just felt like, well, that's why, like, maybe she would have slept well and whatever. And I think having the experience with my son and knowing it works really, really helped me go through with it, because I don't think I would have if it wasn't for that. Honestly, I don't think I would have. So long story short, I tried again the next night. I said to myself, I'm going to do it one more night. If it goes the same as night 1, I'm going to just try again in a month or 2. And then I said, you know, if it goes better, then we'll keep going with it. And it did go better, actually. So she only cried for half an hour that night. And it was not as intense, not as consistent. There were longer breaks in between the cries, like for the half hour. So I was like, okay. Like, I felt really encouraged by that. I was like, because I knew, like, when you do sleep training, you need to realize, like, they're learning to soothe themselves. It's going to take them time to learn those skills, right? Then she woke up 3 hours after I had put her down. So, little context, because she was still breastfeeding, I did decide that I'm not going to cut out, like with my son, he was not breastfeeding anymore. So I just did like cold turkey, he sleeps through the night. With her, because she is breastfeeding, I read basically what you do is kind of set a time, you know, you want it to be at least a few hours. And so I decided, again, mind you, she was only 6 months. So I decided that if she slept for 3 hours, like if I wouldn't go in until it had been 3 hours, basically. It had been the 3 hours. So I went in and I fed her. She fell asleep while I fed her, but then she puked. So I had to change, because she was a really big puker back then. I had to fully change her sleep sack pajamas. And I put her back down awake because she had puked. So she only cried for like a few minutes and went to sleep. So I was like, yes. Then she woke up about 45 minutes later, only cried for a few minutes and went back to sleep. So I'm like, okay, this is not bad. I can handle this. And honestly, it was a pretty good night. She then woke up 4 hours after I had put her down again. So again, she had met the 3 hour requirement. So I went in and fed her. She fell asleep while feeding, and then that was it for the night. So I'm like, okay, this was a good night. Then over the course of the next few nights, she kind of improved. She went to sleep with no crying. And I was like, or like maybe 2 minutes. So like, again, it was just progress. I would say for the first 4 or 5 nights, she did wake up a few times before it was time for me to go in. And so she did have to cry herself back to sleep. But honestly, the longest she cried was like 10-15 minutes. And on average, it was usually about like probably 5 to 8 minutes, which like I know still sounds really bad, but like it was progress, and she was learning and she was putting herself to sleep. To be fair though, like we need to, while I try to remind myself, because there are still some days that she will cry when I put her down. I try to remember, like, crying is their way of communicating. They can't say that they don't want to go to bed. Like, for example, my son argues to go to bed almost every night. One more minute. And he's 5, but he can use words, whereas she can't. So she just cries. Now, she rarely cries, and if she does, it's for like literally 30 seconds. Long story short, sleep training went really, really well. Sleep training, honestly, it was really difficult, especially considering she's a much more fussy baby. So she fought it more than my son ever did. But no, it went really, really well. And I'm so glad I did it. Honestly, she's a different baby because of it. It never affected my relationship with her. She's still, I mean, this sounds like cocky in a way, but like it's not, I'm not being, but she's still obsessed with me, wants to be with me all the time. She still is a happy baby. Honestly, she is like a million times happier. You never hear her anymore. She used to cry all the time. Now, like, you never hear her cry. So I'm just so thankful I went ahead with it. We had a great experience. It took a few weeks for her to like get into the point where she can fully self-soothe herself, but now 3 months later, and like it's been a while that it's been like this, but now she fully can self-soothe. Mind you, I'm still feeding, and I do feed every night before bed. A lot of the time she falls asleep. So that's another thing, is that they do say when you're doing sleep training is to have a routine, and it's all about the routine. Like all about the routine, and it really helps them learn this is bedtime. It helps them, get into that kind of bedtime routine and mode. So I was really big on the routine at that point. I would do, and they also don't want them to fall asleep when you're training them. So you're not supposed to let them fall asleep before you put them down. So they're supposed to learn, I'm going to bed now. So back when I started, I did do a routine. I would feed first because I didn't want her to fall asleep. Then I would change her bum, put her PJs on, read her a story, sing her a song, do her prayers, and then put her in her crib. Now, I'm not as big on the routine, only because she's been sick quite a few times since we started sleep training. My son is in JK. They are literally sick more than they're healthy. So because she was sick, there were times where I would go in more. Like if she would wake up, like I obviously will still go in if she's not feeling well. Like I do kind of break that rule, but like honestly, I don't have to very often because she's just really learned to sleep well. But the reason is because she would be so tired because she's not feeling well. So I would be like, well, I don't want to have to wake her up when she's not feeling well, because that's what they say is if they fall asleep, you're supposed to wake them up. But because she was already sleeping well, like, and I had kind of gotten through the thick of the sleep training, I kind of reverted out of, like, I just got out of the routine. So I would just change her bum, put her pajamas and sleep sack on, and then I would feed her. She would fall asleep. I put her down, but she had already learned to self-soothe. So I felt like it was fine. And for me, that worked. For you and your baby, if you choose to do sleep training, it might not work. You know, maybe they need that routine to stay with it. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I would just say do what works for you. But I kind of got out of the routine, and so now, yeah, I kind of feed her to sleep, but there are a lot of times where she won't go to sleep, especially as of recently. I think she's kind of, as she's gotten older, and moves more, she fights the going to sleep. So I'll just put her down. Sometimes I'll do like a song or a story, and then I'll put her down. Now she naps wonderfully. She naps twice a day. She sleeps for usually around 2 hours. There are times where it's only like an hour and a half. There are also times where it's like, this is very rare, but there are some times where it's like 2.5 hours. On average, it's about 2 hours. I'm not as frustrated all the time. I'm not as exhausted. I'm not as touched out. I'm more patient with both my kids, with my husband. Yeah, I'm going to kind of cut it at that because I took way too long to talk about the sleep training. I will say one more thing about sleep training is I do want to do kind of a round 2 of sleep training, which sounds funny because I still feed her in the night. She wakes up on average usually about 2 times a night. There are rare occasions she sleeps through the night. Sometimes she'll only wake up once and then there's also times, like, for example, when she's sick, she'll sometimes wake up 3 or 4 times, or if she's like really hungry or whatever. I'm going to do a round 2 of sleep training, which I'm not looking forward to, but I am going to do it. And it's going to be at 1 once I've cut out breastfeeding. I'm going to do kind of what I did with my son. The thing is, it won't be as hard because she already knows how to put herself to sleep. The only thing that I'm going to have to do is just not go in at night. So I think what I'll do is just try to kind of wean her off at night. Like maybe for the month leading up, do like only let her feed from me for like 30 seconds and then put her down awake so that maybe she's getting not relying on the, like, not eating as much. And then I will at 1 kind of do where she just puts herself back to sleep at night too, but she already knows how, so it's not going to be as difficult for her. The other things I kind of wanted to talk about were, in terms of my daughter, were like milestones. Like, what is she doing? Because like I think the last time I talked to you guys about it, she was like only a few months old. So now she's 9 months old. She eats pretty much everything. She is a big eater. She's very food motivated. She loves to feed herself. So she's really gotten into being independent and she loves to feed herself. So kind of makes it hard because like I was doing a lot of like baby food pureed, a lot of the pouches that you can buy, so that she could get her fruits and vegetables, her protein. But now she will sometimes have pouches, but there are times where she won't, like, I have to give her the pouch. Like, she has to suck it out of it. And that's actually how she learned to suck from a straw, was because she wanted to do the pouch on her own. So she like stopped eating from the spoon and she was like fighting it. And I was like, oh my goodness, don't tell me, because my son is a bad eater. I was like, please don't tell me that we have another. Anyways, I gave her the pouch and she loved it. I think it's just, I've started kind of giving her stuff that we're eating and doing that a little bit more. And I think that's kind of, she just wants the good stuff, you know, she wants the real food. Likes eggs, she likes like all sorts of fruit. I even will do frozen fruit in like a fresh feeder, so it's because she's teething right now. She has 2 teeth. Finally, she just got them within like the last few weeks, because like they can only eat so much with their gums. It is kind of wild what they can eat with their gums, and like what they can do with, like, she was eating stuff that I'm like, how are you eating that? I'm like, you don't have teeth. She's a little chunky monkey and growing like a weed. She is I wouldn't say she's crawling, like she's not on hands and feet crawling, but she is like army crawling. So she pulls herself around. She's starting to learn to go up on her hands and knees. She just hasn't gotten the hang of like the movement actually. Like she'll go up on her hands and knees and then she'll go on her stomach and pull herself. But she's learning to crawl. So she can move around if she wants to, although she's kind of at the stage where she just gets frustrated because she can't really move as much as she wants. Like unless there's something she sees, especially if it's something she shouldn't have, or like she's really into playing, she usually just gets frustrated and wants me to pick her up. But no, she's really starting to move around. She's also just learned, like within the few days before I record this video, she just has learned to sit herself up from belly position, which is kind of nice. She like propels herself on her hands and knees onto her feet. She's very like stiff-legged all the time. She said mama. Mama was her first word, and I believe that was more at like 6 or 7, I think it was 7 months she said that, around there. She said it like consistently for like a couple weeks, and then she hasn't said it since. She also says the word okay. I know, it's such a weird, like that was her second word. I don't know why. I guess like maybe because I'm like, okay, or like, I don't know. But she says, okay. She'll go, okay, okay. She is starting to say dada. It's very rare, and like at first I wasn't sure, but she's starting to learn to say dada. She is going to be a chatterbox. Like her gibberish, like, so those are the only actual words she said, but she says lots of like baby gibberish. Like she'll go on and on. She does like love to stand, but like I have to hold her. Like she's not very secure. She's pulled herself up a couple times on her own and stood up. Like she has a toy that's kind of like made for that. So she has done it a couple times, but she's like not secure. She's like pretty good, like the pincer grab at this point. She likes, I mean, she's very, again, as I said, food motivated. So when there's food involved, she loves Moana. It's funny, like Moana is the only one she'll actually watch. Again, it's just usually when the songs are on. It's not like she's sitting there like staring at the TV for like half an hour. But like if I need to get something done and she's kind of being fussy or whatever, I'll put Moana on and like fast forward to the songs, and she loves it. She loves it. She has started playing Strange. So even with like my parents, like all the grandparents, really anybody she doesn't know, she doesn't do it as much with women unless they take her when she doesn't want to. So like, for example, if like my mom or my sister or my aunts, like when they've seen her, or my cousin, like she won't cry when they look at her. She'll give the most wicked death stare though. Like with women, she won't cry just by them looking at her. She'll just be like like the whole time. They'll be like, ah, hi. And she'll be like, but with men, a lot of times, even if they just look at her, she'll cry. Like my dad, sometimes he'll go and talk to her and she'll start bawling. She's getting a little better with my dad because like she recognizes him, like she knows him. But yeah, no, she's not the most friendly baby. If I'm not in the room, she's pretty good with like she won't cry for my husband. Like she loves her dad too. But it's just like when I'm in the room, she goes nuts. Like even I don't think she really knows what the word no means yet, or at least like can't fully comprehend like, okay, mom's saying no, so I'm not going to do it. But there are times where I'll say no to her and she'll just look at me and smile, and I'm like, cool. So this is what we're in for. Breastfeeding is another one I wanted to talk about. She is a good breastfeeder. She's always been a good eater from the get-go. Like the day I had her, she ate for hours straight, like just wanted the boob. Yeah, so there's just a few other things I wanted to mention, like more about me. So like postpartum, I never experienced with either of my babies, thankfully, any postpartum depression. I did have a bit of anxiety with both of them. I would say honestly with my daughter, it's a little better. Like I don't have as much anxiety because I was forced to separate from her more from a much earlier age. So with my son, I like never left him ever. And I never wanted to. I definitely had separation anxiety from my son. But with my daughter, I had to work 3 weeks later. And so mind you, I'm in the home, but I'm not with her, right? And I've also really tried to be better at taking time for myself and actually leaving the home and like doing things with friends or going to like church or different kind of things. Now I take the kids with me to church, but like there's certain extra kind of events like small group and different evening services that I've gone to on my own, like, but I've been better at that this time, and I think it's really helped my anxiety. Like, it's forced me to separate, and then I'm not so anxious when I do. Like, so physically, obviously we're 9 months later, we're not really having any, like, it's not like directly postpartum kind of symptoms. Like, I healed up really well. I had a really great delivery and stuff physically, but I would say that the biggest thing I still notice how it affects me is eating, because I am breastfeeding. I have a large appetite, and I did to begin with, if I'm honest. I had a really big appetite ever since I had Hudson. I'm breastfeeding now, so it helps me, you know, not gain weight, but I don't want to like stop breastfeeding when she turns 1 and just gain a bunch of weight. So I'm doing my best, but I have such bad, like, I'm obsessed. I feel like I have more cravings breastfeeding than I did when I was pregnant. I am obsessed with Reese's, like, peanut butter cups, like the actual cups. I'm obsessed. Anything sweet. I've always had a sweet tooth, but I'm like, and like, I just have such a big appetite, so I have to be careful. I try to eat really healthy, like for breakfast, lunch. I do my best to eat healthy for dinner, but like my husband still wants the carbs and the, you know, all that jazz. So I don't have very much self-control. I think it's, you know, with my son, I gained 50 pounds and I didn't lose all of it ever. I lost it all within a year and a half. And the only reason I lost the last like 10 pounds was because I was getting married. And so I was like wanting to lose weight for the wedding dress and all that. But then I gained like 5 to 10 pounds back. And I don't say this to be like, oh, look at me, because believe me, it's probably not going to be permanent, but I'm actually lower than I was when I got pregnant. Like, I only gained 28 pounds with my daughter, whereas I gained 50 with my son. There were times in my pregnancy where I actually didn't have that much of an appetite. And then with breastfeeding, I just think I'm burning calories in addition to trying to eat healthy, in addition to even when I'm not eating healthy, I never sit down. Because I have a 9-month-old baby, I have a 5-year-old son, I have a home to clean, I work in the evenings, like I literally never sit down. So I think that that's a big part of it. But yeah, so that's kind of my experience with weight loss. I went through a different experience with my son. It was not as easy to lose the weight with my first, which I didn't expect. Don't get me wrong, there are days where I'm lazy, and I'm not like trying to be like, so like I lost this weight and it's because I like never sit down and I do so much and I'm never lazy. I'm not trying to be that way, because believe me, there are days where I might not be like just sitting on the couch chilling, but like I'm definitely not doing the cleaning that I'm supposed to be doing. But what my point being is my life is just really busy right now. It's just the period of time I'm in. Like, I'm just more active. You know, I'm taking the kids for a walk because I have a 5-year-old, and when we're stuck in the house, we're going to lose our minds. Life is busy, but life is great. And I'm so thankful for the fact that I have a job that I'm able to work and watch my kids. I'm thankful that the sleep training went well for me. I'm thankful that my daughter has really come a long way, because she was a nut job. I'm always nervous when I talk about these things, because I feel like either I'm coming across as like I know everything, or I'm acting like a professional or an expert, or I feel like I'm coming across as like, this is how my life is going and I'm so fantastic. That's, again, I want to stress that, like, I'm a hot mess 90% of the time. I rarely put makeup on anymore. I don't post as often as I want to because I don't run out of the time, but there are days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to record today. And then I put my daughter down for a nap and I'm like, no, I'm not. We just need to remember to have empathy and understanding and compassion and not be judgmental. Being a mom is so hard, honestly. I think that the hardest part, aside from like the physical and mental exhaustion. It's hard because I feel like it's just, there's judgment everywhere. Aren't doing enough, or you're doing too much, or, you know, you shouldn't be working, you should be watching your kids. How dare you? They're going to be raised by somebody else. But you're not working. Oh, all you do is sit at home and do nothing, and you don't make any money for your family, and you leave it all up to your husband, or you get to just sit around and do nothing, or, you know, you let your kids watch TV. How dare you? You don't let your kids watch TV. You're like crunchy granola. Like, it's like nothing we do is right. So I think my motto as a parent, and when I think of other people as parents, my motto literally is just do what you gotta do. And obviously, and no, I'm not saying like there's exceptions to that. Don't abuse your children. Don't neglect your children. Of course, I'm not condoning that. But you sit your kid in front of the TV because you're tired, or you're overwhelmed, or you're, you know, for your mental health sake, to get a break, or you need to get something done. You need to cook dinner, or you need to like clean the house. Your child's gonna be fine. You don't agree with that, and you don't want your kids to have screen time. Absolutely incredible. And I like, there's nothing wrong with that. We need to stop being judgmental because it's hard. What I hope from these videos is, number one, for us to connect on a more personal level, and it's not just me trying makeup all the time. Like, I genuinely want like for you guys to get to know me. Oh, I didn't do my lips. And have more relatable content, but also that it would be helpful for somebody. I don't know. I feel like hearing other people's experiences, like the raw, the real, the not like edited so that it's acceptable, you know, like just hearing other people, what they've been through. It, in a lot of times when I watched that or heard it, it's made me feel better, you know, like, okay, I'm not the only one that feels that judgment. I'm not the only one that's done sleep training. I'm not a horrible parent. Or just for like, you know, sometimes hearing what other people have done, it gives you, you know, ideas. Encouragement, I think, is my main point. I just want to encourage you guys. Like, maybe you are a new parent and you're like thinking of sleep training and you want to do it, but you feel like everybody else in your life is telling you you're a horrible person for doing it. Well, you're not going to hear that from me. I don't know. I guess I'm just rambling now. Or even if you're like, I don't need your opinions, that's fine too. And I just hope that they're enjoyable to watch. Maybe you just muted this video and you watched me do my makeup, and that's cool too. Maybe you're like, I don't care about your children. That's fine. I do, but that's fine if you don't. I also really needed this, guys. Just do my makeup and talk to people other than my children. My kids drive me nuts, but I love them to death. So I want to do more of these get readies. They don't always have to be like about my kids either. Also, I got my nails done. I think this is the first video that I have my nails done. They've been on for a month now, but these are my Easter nails. One of these will probably be my thumbnail. I always forget to like stop for a minute and do a thumbnail pose. That's why all my videos are me like weird facial expressions. It's because I have had to screenshot my footage. Anyways, I think you've heard enough from me. Hopefully this video doesn't take me 3 years to edit, and hopefully it's not too long. I wrote notes, but very bullet point form and not very much detail, so I left it up to my brain to put this video together, and this is where we're at. Oh, I didn't even talk about birth control. Basically, my husband got a vasectomy. No, I'm on birth control. And then they have to go back 3 months later and, you know, get a sample done, sample tested. And as long as there's no floaters in there, we're good to go and I can go off birth control. I could even tell you guys how that goes, like my experience going off of it, because like that's like the new thing on TikTok. It's like sharing your experience of going off birth control. Because I wonder how it's going to affect my body. Like, I've honestly had not very much hormone imbalance because I had a lot of like anxiety at the beginning. And then the sleep deprivation, I think all of my feelings I blamed on sleep deprivation. I wonder what was hormones and what really was sleep deprivation. There was a couple weeks where I just cried for no reason sometimes. I was like, I'm not an emotional person. So I'm like, what's wrong with me? I still am gonna, like, I literally have mental breakdowns on the daily. Like, believe me, I'm hot mess. But like, that's just like a normalcy for me. So, hormonally, I feel like I'm okay. Everything's good. I did lose a lot of hair, guys. It's growing back. You can see all my like little my little hairs. So I lost a lot of hair. Like, I'm still losing hair, but not as bad. Like, it was to the point where my hair was everywhere. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching and sticking around for my scatterbrained talk. I can't even think of words at this point. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy, and subscribe to my channel. I would love and appreciate you so much to join the fam, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. And bye. See you guys next time.